Welcome, everybody, to the Single and Stiletto Show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a life and love transformational coach and founder of Single and Stilettos. Today, we have an awesome guest, Patty Contenta, and she's a sensuality coach at sensualitysecrets.com. And I'm super excited because today we're talking about Fearless Flirting Formula. And I know, ladies, sometimes we forget how to flirt, or I've even had clients tell me, I never learned how to flirt. So this is really important. So Patty, before we jump into it, can you tell the ladies in a quick rundown how you became a sensuality coach?
Sure. Good to see you, Susan. Basically, my background is in ballroom and Latin dancing. I've spent 25 years in the business of dancing competitively, running a studio, coaching, and I learned a lot of stuff and techniques about movement and body language and how to exude a more feminine confidence on the dance floor that I basically translated in my online business with so that people don't have to necessarily take to years of dancing in order to learn, but there's a way that a woman can present herself non-verbally through her body language in a way that's more approachable and open so that she can basically attract more of whether it's men or if you're in a relationship, sort of create that kind of desirability in a sense of ignite some spark between the two of you non-verbally, so that kind of thing.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into what is the Fearless Flirting Formula?
So basically, the Fearless Flirting Formula, it's something that I put together because my clients, the women, were having a hard time with flirting, mostly for two specific reasons. One of them is that they didn't want to invite the kind of sexual attention that then they'd have to be in a position to say no to and didn't feel comfortable with that. And also because they wanted to be respected more for their mind and not just their body. So they felt like, do we really have to do this flirting thing? And then there's the women sometimes that don't feel comfortable about how to flirt. So I sort of created this formula as a way to ease into flirting. And it's basically made up of two parts. Part one is the ability to create chemistry through having a charismatic attitude. So what is charisma and how does one achieve charisma? Plus, the second part is the ability to actually create chemistry through sensuality, through feminine energy. And that's the part where we would use a way to turn up that part of ourselves, so that we start to feel this sense of, oh, wow, this rapport is going really well between us. I sense that, there's something that I enjoy about this person. Now I'm going to turn it up and go into the more nonverbal part of being more flirty through your elevating the senses, feminine energy, and how do we do that? So those two parts, basically charisma plus sexual energy or sensual energy, if you feel more comfortable with sensual energy, put together. So we start with the charismatic attitude, what creates that, and then we add the sensual part.
Okay, so how does I hear every woman in my audience going, okay, so how do I create this charisma effect?
Awesome. So if first allow me to define what charisma means. And charisma ultimately is the ability to leave someone with a better impression about you and a better impression about themselves. So in your presence, they feel better about themselves and they actually feel better about having met you. So that then ultimately there are four sort of attributes that I have noticed are important to have within any kind of conversation or interaction. And I created the acronym ACES, ACES. Mm-hmm. A is for appreciation. C is for commonality. E is for elevation, being the kind of person that is able to elevate the mood, and S is for self-expression. So then I can briefly explain what all those mean. Appreciation is basically the ability to give compliments, to be in any position and recognize what people have that are their gifts. So it could be something that they're wearing, to how they smell, to even a value or an attitude that they bring to the table. And sometimes you can notice that in any interaction, whether you're having dinner with someone or having a coffee and you notice the way they talk to the waiter, that's something that you want to be able to acknowledge and notice and say, oh, you have this really kindness about you, or you pay attention to detail. I like the way the ability to give compliments. So appreciation is having the willingness to do that. And the intuitiveness to pay attention to that, be someone that pays attention to detail and gives a compliment. So that's appreciation. C, commonality, is look for what's common. Sometimes it could be from the way they carry themselves to asking questions where what are some hobbies that they have. And sometimes also it's asking questions and finding out more about their personalities, and sometimes there's values that they have in common with yours. So you're looking for commonalities through questions. And then E is elevation. So be the kind of person that is able to elevate the mood. So sometimes it could be through, those people that have a natural sense of humor. Sometimes they can be that way. For me, it's often about paying attention to my environment. So I listen to, if there's music that I like, and then I kind of say, oh, do you hear that song? I love this music. And I start talking about it and where it leads me from there. It could be the coffee that I'm having or the cup. Whatever experience that I'm in, I use the senses to elevate it and then put myself in that mood. And hopefully he will join in with me with that. So I'm the one that always in the space of making sure that I create an elevation of mood. So it doesn't necessarily have to be always through humor, but through being fully present in the experience of what's happening and in sort of involve yourself in it. I think you get what I'm saying a little bit with that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and let me ask you a question about that because you talked about the senses. And so, do you mean by using the 5 different senses to elevate that?
Correct. It's
Okay.
ultimately about I use what am I listening to? What do I see and notice? It could be what I'm smelling, what I'm
Hmm.
tasting, and I fully involve myself in the experience and bring him into it. Because sometimes women will leave that only up to the man to make sure, let's see what he brings to the table. And I want to be the kind of person that is fully experiencing that, and hopefully you'll be the kind of person that's with me that wants to jump in, or is that uncomfortable for you? So usually I take the responsibility of elevating the mood.
Mm.
That's with the E. And then the S is self-expression, and that is sharing who you are. It's maybe some of your quirkiness, maybe some things that you're reading, experiences that you recently have. You want to be the kind of person that also self-expresses who she is and what she's doing in her life in a manner that's fun, and sharing it with them to kind of know, hey, this is who I am, this is what I love to do, and then asking him for the same thing, but not necessarily only waiting. I think sometimes women specifically may wait, and maybe even men, but women, I know from when I have the conversations with them, is they tend to be the ones that sit back and want the men to be the ones to put them in this experience. And I'm the believer of I want to fully experience everything myself. So let me be the one that shows up fully expressed, including hobbies or what I'm doing, and I share that with them. So that was sort of my last point of the 4 attributes or social attributes or virtues, if you will, that create a charismatic attitude.
Okay, great. Well, and then the second part you were talking about, what did you call it? Sensual effects?
Sensual energy or
Energy?
sexual energy. It's this idea of now when you feel that there's this great rapport, you want to be able to turn it up non-verbally. So this is where you want to go much more into your flirty self in the way. So sometimes I use the body language thing that, will you just sit and listen, or will you arch and use some of the techniques that I talk about in my book with using your body language to enhance this approachable attitude through, this idea of a woman should, when she, so in dancing, like a quick zero in on that is, if you think about dancing, good dancing is always having a very straight vertical spine.
Hmm.
It's powerful. It allows for movement to be balanced. And then there's moments within your dancing or flirting where you want to get off of the bone and kind of just get here. And in that moment, there's a melting process that happens in our demeanor that allows for someone to be drawn into you more. So one quick thing would be just be aware of how you're holding yourself. Are you very rigid and tight, or do you allow the melting process to happen and lean back and allow for this sort of off the bone feel to happen, where and then you touch yourself maybe, or you do any of these types of things to allow a more lean in from him, if you will.
I love that. I love that. Because I think a lot of people don't think about the body language, and body language is sometimes I believe it can actually say more than words.
Correct.
How you're carrying yourself, because sometimes we could say things and we don't really feel that way, but our body language says it all, right?
Yeah. And I think what it does, it can't help, like even if you're trying to not go there, it's expressing something. It's like intention, right? So when the body and mind are sort of in alignment, everything sort of feels better. So the idea of the body language is to almost non-verbally show that you're interested, that I'm liking where this is going. You might even be sometimes the person that touches his hand first to really to appreciate that moment that you share together. And especially in this, I have to say, in this whole Me Too sort of culture right now, or climate, I should say, I've heard from men that they've become much more careful with how they approach a woman. So I think we have to be even um, more obvious, quote unquote, with this, because they're going to step back and be a lot more careful. So at least that's sort of some of the talk that I hear sometimes with men. So I think it relies even more on us to be able to allow him to, are you okay with me stepping in, with actually enjoying this, where I can touch you and you're not going to be offended by that?
I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I have heard that from men. I've been
Mm,
interviewing several men lately, and they have said that they've become a little bit gun shy now in this Me
mhm.
Too movement. And so it's important to let a man know it's okay. So what I believe is that opening of the door, like you said, it's just touching his hand. It's nothing overt or anything
Yeah.
like crazy, but it's just letting him know, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in the end, I think if well, as soon as something gets uncomfortable, you could always obviously say no, but it rarely gets to that. I think if you're too concerned about that, then it never part of the whole sexual energy is this attraction, is this chemistry, and you have to be able to create that and not kind of just say no, I'm not, I'm going to hold back and not allow that to happen. So hence, by going there with charisma first, where let's create this intellectual emotional rapport,
Mm-hmm.
and then see from there if we want to get to take it to another level, if you will.
Awesome. Well, these have been some amazing tips. So, Patty, I know you have a free gift for the ladies.
I do. And basically, it's a simple step by step guide that will leave them feeling a little bit more courageous with going out on a self date. I really feel that women need to become comfortable with taking themselves out, so that they put themselves in sometimes uncomfortable situations where they may be alone, and say, I'm going to go sit at this restaurant bar and have a meal and allow myself to create some of the things that I talked about in this charismatic attitude. How do I have conversations with complete strangers that are around me, so that it becomes easier and easier? And in this way, when they're on an actual date, it kind of rolls off their tongue and it becomes easier to be in that situation. So it's my self-date guide.
Awesome. So, ladies, if you would like Patty's free gift, you can just click on the link below the video. Or if you're listening to the podcast, just go to singleandstilettos.com and look for Patty's interview, and you can get her free gift too. So, thanks, ladies, for joining us on the Single and Stiletto Show. Our show is available both in video format and podcast format. If you would like to view the videos, you can go to singleandstilettos.com. If you'd like to get the podcast, you can download it from iTunes. And if you would like to get our free video series, The Secrets About Men, What Men Wish You Knew But Will Never Tell You, you can click right here on the video, or you can go to singleandstilettos.com.